The state of that thing. Right, so that's recording now. So, 1, 2, 3. And welcome to another podcast, the Northern Rider podcast. I'm the Northern Rider, and I have a special guest with me today. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Well, I don't know about a special guest. I'm definitely a bit special, but thanks for inviting me on for a chat. So I'm Tim Norris, or Tim from Wales, as I think I've become known on most social media platforms. And I'm 48 almost, and I ride a mountain bike for fun and talk about it and blog about it and photograph it for fun as well. But that's kind of it. I suppose that's the interesting part.
Well, you're just kind of getting to grips with Google Hangouts now and stuff, so you're becoming well versed in everything now, aren't you? So.
I thought I was quite knowledgeable about computers, but I've never used Google Hangouts before, and that camera just completely fucked me then.
So you're of the older sort of generation here. So
well, I'm gonna have to go now, I'm afraid. Sorry.
So tell us a little bit about like your sort of start into mountain biking and stuff like that. So when did you kind of first get involved?
Wow, do you know what? I went through this morning because I knew you were going to ask me. I bought my first mountain bike when I was 40.
40 years old. That's quite
so
late in the game.
I did have bikes when I was younger. Of course I did. You know, we all had bikes, but it was never a big thing for me. We rode on BMXs a little bit, but I was never a BMXer as such. But yeah, I've always had bikes, and but my first proper mountain bike was in about May 2011.
May 2011, yeah. Do you remember what bike that was?
Yeah, it was a Giant Revel. I went into a bike shop to go and get an old bike of mine that I got out of the shed, kind of get it serviced. And as you do when you take an old rusty bike into a bike shop, they end up selling you a new one. So I bought a Giant Revel. I think it cost me about 400 quid.
Yeah. Oh, that's it's quite a blast from the past, really. I mean, I was like kind of just talking on my my previous podcast. I had the Mongoose Brawler, which was my kind of first sort of major sort of bike going into the bike sort of world, which was I think it was like a pale blue kind of colour, and I remember sticking like an old pool ball in the spokes and stuff like that. Do you remember like as a kid, like do you remember having like a bike that you particularly really liked? Like for me, mine was like my Green Rolly that got nicked.
I had a everybody talks about the old Rally Chopper, which was obviously the one with the gear stick in the middle. Yeah. Well, I had, and it came up on Facebook actually, somebody was selling one a few days ago. I had the Tomahawk, which was, there were like 3 of those bikes. There was the Budgie, which was the little one. There was the Chopper, which was the big one with the gear stick. And in the middle was the Tomahawk, which was kind of, I don't know, I guess the middle brother of the family. And I remember riding that loads when I was younger. And then when I got a bit older, I had some complete and utter no brand BMX. And I saved and I bought some lime green Skyway Tough 2 wheels for it. That's my only real memory from back in the day of riding a bike when I was younger.
So you went from that sort of bikes and things like this. What did you kind of go into? I mean, obviously when you were 40 years old, I mean, did you kind of understand what you were looking at and things like this, like geometry things?
Like... So I probably never rode bikes for nearly 20 years. I had one of these. I actually had a fully rigid yellow mountain bike that I bought from a company called Charlie Brown's, which was like a Halfords, and it was this
Charlie Brown's.
So Charlie Brown's, and this mountain bike was made by Daewoo.
Right.
Daewoo, who now make washing machines and cars, right? And I'll have to see if I can find a photo of it somewhere, and I'll put it up on Instagram or something. But this was way before mobile phones and whatnot. So so what happened was I went to Australia when I was early 20s. I came back with this massive love of the outdoors, and I ended up taking this bike that I bought from Charlie Brown's, and I remember having some photos that I took riding around Talabont Reservoir, which now is like the Gap, which is quite a famous South Wales ride. And I did that, and then I kind of stopped doing it because it wasn't fun going out and doing it on my own, and I never really thought too much about it. And that was it. I've always liked being outdoors. I've then ended up working quite a lot and doing loads of other stuff. But it was only, I don't know what it was. Like I say, it was only sort of in my late 30s, beginning to 40, I started realizing I wanted to get out on the bike, and the main motivation was to go out and just explore, really, rather than I didn't know mountain biking existed. Hence, I just walked into a bike shop and said, "Can you fix this for me?"
Yeah. So you kind of like you live down in South Wales, is that correct?
I did. I don't anymore. I live in Wiltshire.
Wiltshire, right.
Hence the from Wales rather than in Wales.
Yeah. But you live in close to an area which has like an abundance of like places to explore. I mean, I've been down like the Black Mountains and like the Penny Farn and things like this, and I honestly didn't know that sort of thing existed in the UK. Like, never mind. I mean, I've climbed Ben Nevis, and that's Scotland. You always have this idea in Scotland that it's just like deers running around in mountains and people just drinking whiskey and stuff like that. But like Wales, there's just an abundance of, I mean, how many bike parks are there now? Like there's quite a few, I would say.
Oh, I think MB Wales have what they call, because they have what they call bike parks, trail centres, and they give it some slightly different terminology. But I reckon there must be 10 centres for mountain biking in Wales. Across South Wales, you've got Afan and Breckford and Cwm Carn and Bike Park Wales. There's 4 to start with, and then you start looking at Black Mountain Cycle Centre, and then some of the smaller spots in between. And then, of course, as you go further up, you've then got obviously Nant Arian, Coed Brennan. There must be 10 official, if you like, locations or hubs for mountain biking just in Wales.
There's an absolute abundance there. I mean, like, I was just discussing this with a friend last night. Like, we up in the northeast, we have pretty much got nothing that's kind of anywhere near Wales. I mean, you've got the infrastructure there as well, but like we have like the Danny Hart track at Hamsterley Forest, and we have like Chopwell Woods, which is up like about 6 miles away from my house, and that's like, I would say there's like 2 runs in there. Like it's one big run, but it splits off into a red and a black, and then it's kind of like a little bit of off-piste in between, stuff like that. Recently they just built a drop which led to nothing, and it's one of those things where I'm like, I think I probably need to move to Wales now.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that's crossed my mind many times, but I've got I've got a wife and kids here, everyone's settled. I can do my job anywhere. I'm in sales, and I work from home. I go to the office. I go on the road, so it doesn't matter where I'm based, which is a kind of a frustration for me, because I would love to be based in Wales somewhere, but then it's not going to happen. So I just have to make the most and travel when. But you're saying there's not a lot around you, but whereabouts are you? Where are you? You're northeast, so where exactly?
So I'm over in the west end of Newcastle, which is like
okay.
It's kind of like, we are about, well, we used to be Northumberland, but the boundaries shifted a good 20 odd year ago. But we're like pretty close to Northumberland. But saying that, we are like an hour's drive from Kielder Forest, like going over to the Lake District and stuff like that. There is that. But
I would say you've probably got access to a lot more of the riding that I'd prefer, wilder riding than I have, and you certainly, the terrain that you've got around you is probably a lot more conducive to mountain biking than what I've got here in Wiltshire, which is pretty flat, really.
Yeah, I mean, like the kind of wilder sort of stuff is something that I'm kind of really interested in, kind of exploring a lot more. I lived in Switzerland for like 2 years, and that was just like exploration after exploration, and you get to see a country's landscape for what it is when you just kind of get lost in it. And that's kind of what I want to do within the UK and other places in Europe and across wherever. you know, I mean, I've done like a lot of hiking all over like the UK and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
being able to take the bike somewhere like that, I think would be something that I'd really enjoy doing. And do you kind of like, would you prefer that sort of style, like just a complete exploration, maybe it's like taking a map, taking things like that to go somewhere where that's not been ridden before?
Yeah, I think, as I said, what got me into it was the idea of going out and exploring and just going further. I like to take photos. I think you follow me on Instagram and stuff. So, I like to take photos, and that was the main reason for getting the bike, because you could travel a greater distance and see more stuff in a shorter space of time. And I guess my preference is to get out and go out on the mountains and go for a big ride, a big epic. And I've dabbled a little bit with the old bike packing and everything, and I try to plan a couple of trips every year, going away for a weekend, when you just go and you smash out 3 days of riding in maybe bike parks, or even just just going exploring stuff. Climbing and hiking a bike up over Helvellyn or Snowdon or something like that. I love that kind of thing, but I don't like to pigeonhole myself. At the same time, I love to go down to Wind Hill and teach myself to jump better and ride a bit faster. I'm not competitive by any stretch. I don't enter races or anything like that. So for me, I like to do the whole thing, but I suppose the skills, the jumping and the drops and all that kind of stuff, I think if I thought about it, what that does, it just allows you to deal with all those unexpected things that come up on a trail.
Yeah, 100%. Like the aspect of being able to adapt, like a lot of what I got taught with my ski snowboard qualifications was like, we're going to do this drill, we're going to do this, we're going to do this terrain, that terrain. And that enabled me to kind of go, like, when I first thought about it, was like, all right, okay, like, I can do that now. That's an individual thing. But it's not. It's all about, like, amalgamating, like, everything all into one big bundle so that you can adapt your bike riding skills to every sort of terrain. I mean, like, a lot of, like, people who I see kind of, like, just hitting, like, specific things, like, I like to kind of, like you say, like, you didn't want to pigeonhole yourself. I'd kind of like to be able to ride everything at a comfortable level, like, because like I'm not competitive in that aspect. Like, I used to race a lot when I was younger, like ski racing, and that was like, for me, that was great. It was the best thing ever. It was a thrill and stuff like this. And like, just recently, a couple of weeks back, I entered into my first race. So I've got like a downhill time trial over in Eastgate in Durham.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. Like, do you think you'd ever enter anything just for a laugh, just to?
Oh, definitely. I was totally up for the Hard Rock Enduro this year, and I was a little bit apprehensive about the whole. This, you're talking about a 50k ride with 2,000 meters of ascent, 7 gnarly stages. I'd never done it before. I know I can ride all of that terrain. I have no question that I can ride the terrain, because I learned to ride really steep trails, and I love riding really gnarly stuff. But whether I could do all of that stuff, keep on top of it throughout the fitness and the hydration and the food and stuff throughout the day, I don't know. But yeah, I'd like to, but I don't like the kind of the beep through the tape kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm not fast. I'm the first person to put my hand up. I like to make sure that I'm in one piece for Monday morning. So I'll push myself so far, but I'm always operating within my abilities, which is probably holding me back. But I think when you start mountain biking at 40, you
there's a lot to kind of cover really in a short space of time.
Yeah.
No, fair play for you, like jumping in at 40. I mean, was there any particular sort of moment that you kind of look back and think that was the reasons why I started mountain biking? Or was it kind of just you wanted to explore and stuff?
Well, yeah. I mean, I bought this bike, and it was like in about the May of 2011, and a friend of mine I used to go to school with lives in Newport, quite near Cwmcarn, and we were chatting. Oh, you've got a mountain bike, you should come out with us. All right, yeah, I'll go out with you. And we end up climbing quite a well-known local mountain and going down what I would say is probably a black graded trail on most mountain bike trail centres, and that was on this 400 quid hardtail in a pair of trainers, shorts and t-shirt, and that was in May 2011. And in the summer of the next year, I went to Morsine.
Yeah. Oh,
so in the May I had this hardtail. By the September, October, I bought a full suspension bike, and the following summer I was off to Morsine, and I then went. I've made a note this morning. 2012, 2013, 2014 went off to France 3 years running. So the first one was all the bike parks, Leger and Morsine, and the second two were 2 weeks of guided riding in different parts of the Alps, Les Arcs and stuff, and that was uplifted and then guided riding all the way down back to base.
That's pretty cool. And a few of my friends, like from Zermatt, they're all guides. They do like mountaineering and bike riding and stuff like that. I mean, would you like ever think like maybe is that something? I mean, obviously with the family and stuff like that, it's a huge kind of like leap for the family and stuff. But would that be something like maybe moving to Europe to continue?
I couldn't do it. No, I'd love to, but I couldn't do it. I mean, I think financially as well. I think those things don't pay off. They're a hobby that maybe gives you a bit of pocket money rather than a career. I think to make a career out of it, you've got to be really successful. But I started leading mountain bike rides for a local club because I enjoyed getting out and going to different places. And then I can't remember when I got qualified. I'm just looking back now, but I then did my British cycling level 2 leadership back in 2017. So I did the first aid, I did the level 2 guiding, and as I just mentioned, I do a bit of guiding locally, try to get out and about here and there, and mainly just do that just for pocket money, just to fund my biking really, and that's all done under British cycling leadership.
Yeah. How much is that kind of like bringing in?
This I've only done it a couple of times this year, and I think probably just literally a couple of £100.
Yeah.
Last year I did a little bit more, but I ended up doing some rides just for free, just trying to encourage a few people out, and I got a few local people, actually a few neighbours who got bikes and they wanted to come out with me. So yes, good fun. It's not a career, it's just pocket money. And I said this year I haven't really found much time to do a great deal of it at all.
I think there's something to be said about like as a hobby, like for example, like with this channel, this is a hobby. I don't get paid for it, so yeah, technically it's a hobby. Doing it to kind of encourage people to get out on the mountains and being able to kind of help people to realize the potential of what they can do, because I think at some point, if you practice hard enough, everyone can hit a red run at a particular speed with confidence and with some style and stuff like that. Like, do you ever just see, like, with the qualifications and stuff like that, do you feel like you're kind of like helping the community, or do you think it's kind of like it's more helped you, or how do you look at your kind of like your qualifications with the mountain biking sort of industry?
It's a good skill to take to have, to be able to go out and manage a group of people. I mean, if you've done mountaineering and skiing and wherever, it's good to have some kind of skills to know, even if you're just out with your mates, that certain things that you should and shouldn't be doing to keep everybody safe. I will say it was, to start with, it became a bit of a burden, because during my process of doing the training, you end up effectively being taught that you should be prepared for every single scenario. So I went with a group of mates, and we went up Snowdon, and some of the guys had the tiniest packs on, and I was carrying the kitchen sink. Well, what if he breaks his arm? Who's got a shelter? Who's got a bandage? Who's got this? Who's got the other? What if we don't? Suddenly the list of things. So from that perspective, it's a good it's a good skill to have, because you should know how to get out of stuff. Learning map reading. That was a topic. You'll know from my video I did yesterday. Map reading and getting yourself back to base, or being able to let people know where you are, is really important. So, but I do it to give back? I'd be no, I'm no sort of hero. I do it to raise a bit of cash for myself, but it is rewarding. It's good fun getting out and taking people out, and then at the end of
Oh no! Right, so we had a bit of a mishap with Google Hangouts. It's let us down for a brief second there, but we're back up and running. So just going back into that question, you were saying like that, you know, you kind of doing these sort of things, and like it's nice to get the, you know, the beer at the end of it, and like the friendship and things like that.
yeah.
So like,
I mean, yeah, I've made a few friends through doing some guiding. I've helped out some. I've helped out a particular friend of mine who runs a guiding company as being a bit of a backup once or twice. So it's a good qualification to have. It's a good skill to have. As I say, I don't focus on it as being an income stream at all. I just use it for a bit of fun. Although next spring I've got to renew my outdoor first aid, which is going to cost me about 150 quid just to update my first aid. So at that point, I'll probably be a little bit more motivated next year to try and do some more guiding to pay for it.
Yeah, all of these sort of courses do cost like a lot of money. Like especially like first aid it's something that I think everyone kind of really should get a hold on, because
yeah,
I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had a few questions in the past where people have been like, what should I carry in my first aid kit, or what should I do? And I always say to people, I was like, yeah, it's all well and good buying first aid kits, but buy it like a first aid kit that's well within your skill set as well. Because like, there's no point in you getting like, you know, a full on trauma kit, and then you're not able to use it, and then you're left with all this kit that you can't use. And, you know, like, do you have like specific sort of like needs and stuff like that you've been given via like the association, like that says like you must carry X, Y, Z, things like that?
It's there's a guide as to what I think you should be taking, but British Cycling kind of leave your first aid element to your first aid qualification, and there's nothing that says that you must carry X, Y, and Z. And I've experimented, and I've taken, you know, whatever, you know, bandages, triangular bandages, you know, eye patches, and, you know, you get the little finger covers and all that kind of stuff. I've ended up taking all of that kind of stuff out, and it ends up bulking out your pack. So I've just realised, like for a local ride, even I run a little hip pack, you know, like a little waist pack. Sorry, I've even got in there now. I've got some plasters. Like, you know, alcohol wipes, basic bandage or whatever, but that's just for local rides. You know, I'm only out for a couple of hours. I'm never that far away from home. So long as I know I've got something that can, you know, stop a little bit of a bleed or a cut or something. I'm not expecting to go out and splint my broken arm or anything. If that sort of thing happens, then, you know, that's something that I need to be a bit more mindful of, I suppose. But if I'm doing guiding, then I have a little bit more stuff on me. But again, you know, even things like splints, you start carrying 10 kilos worth of gear on your back.
Yeah, I carry. I don't know if you've heard of Sam splints.
Yes,
they are the best thing ever, because I've managed to kind of wrap my first aid kit in amongst the SAM splint. If you don't know what SAM splints are, I mean, obviously just Google it, but like they're like an aluminium, like a very flexible aluminium rod, and like would you say it's like a plastic material? It's like a soft, and you can cut it, you can bend it into different shapes and use it as a splint for like, you know, like sprained ankles, broken things and stuff like that. They're very versatile, and I've managed to wrap like a bit of my first aid kit in it, and then just put it in a waterproof like dry sack, and that works really well for me. And that goes with me everywhere. Like if I'm going to work, or if I'm, you know, anywhere where I'm going, if I've got a bag with me, I'll just take it with us. And they're so light as well, you know.
Yeah.
But I think people do kind of like, they go out on their rides, and I see a lot of people just like a water bottle and things like that. And I don't think many people do end up taking first aid kits. I mean, I would say it's quite an important feature, especially if you hurt yourself in a way that's quite bad and you're with other people, you know.
I was out for a ride with is a local guy that I ride with, and it never fails to amaze me that he comes out without a toolkit, without a puncture repair kit, without a spare tube. And every time you just you take the mick and you're like, well, what are you doing? He says, well, I haven't had a puncture for 4 years. I'm tubeless. And I'm like, well, if you have a puncture, what's going to happen? No tools, nothing. And I just think, I was thinking about this yesterday because I was thinking about content for YouTube and various things, and I think the amount of stuff that you do carry that you don't use. I remember I bought this really nice little Topeak multi-tool maybe about 6 months ago, and I don't use it. It's in my pack. I take it out and it goes out every time. But the amount of times that I've actually had to use a multi-tool out on the trail, I can probably count on one hand in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're doing video footage and stuff like that, like it's a lot of kind of walking backwards and forwards and things like this, putting the camera down the sitting there. So you need tripods, you need like gorilla pod things to grip things, put them in different angles and stuff to really help with your creativity and stuff like that. There's stuff which I've kind of seen and I'm like, I don't want to carry that. And then when you get there, you think, I wish I had that. I really wish I had it. Like I've got like a very lightweight travel tripod, which I've never taken out with me yet. And I just think, how do I carry that? Like with the bag and stuff, I want to make sure like everything's smaller. I had this huge big battery grip on my DSLR, and I've kind of just ripped that off. I've kind of gone back to a single battery and just really condensed everything down, and hopefully trying to get it into like a hip pack or something like that. That's kind of like what I'd like to get out of it, but I don't think the people who don't make content don't realize how much sort of gear you have to kind of hike around with you as well. Like this trip that I've got coming up, I'm going to be carrying a load of camera gear and like spare batteries, spare this, spare that, tripods, microphones, all that kind of stuff like that. I mean,
I don't fuss too much about it, but I've got a GoPro with me when I'm out. I've got my little DJI Osmo Pocket, which I quite often take, which is quite fun.
Oh, that's cool.
I rarely take a proper camera, although I'm looking at starting to take my mirrorless Canon out, but yeah, it just adds to bulk. But I to be honest, I find I get quite a lot of good footage with the GoPro. I got two. I got the Hero 5, and I've got a smaller square session.
Yeah.
And I usually just make do, to be honest. I'm not fussed on the production quality at the moment.
I mean, you made a little edit, like a little shred edit the other day, didn't you? And that was pretty cool, lad. But you were just using GoPros with that, weren't you?
That was one camera with the GoPro, and I don't know if you remember, but I didn't even have a tripod with me at that, because I propped it up on a pile of sticks to do a couple of angles. But yeah, I mean, and this was one of my things that I was trying to do on YouTube, is that mountain bikers, we've all got GoPros. I think probably 7 out of 10 mountain bikers have bought a GoPro.
Oh, 100%.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But nobody, and they go to Bike Park Wales. They'll put their camera on their chest, on their bars, on their helmet, whatever, and then that footage probably never sees the light of day.
Yeah. And
I think to yourself, do one of two things: either save your money and don't spend 400 quid on all the camera gear, or two, at least post up some video edits, even if it's just half an hour of POV. At least do something with it.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I am a big advocate for is that you can go out there and you can make quite a simple edit, doing on quite a short, that edit you were talking about, that was on like about 50 meters of trail with one camera, and I just filmed it from a couple of different angles, just hit it a few different times, edited it with a few bits of music, and boom, you've got something quite simple but quite effective.
Yeah, I really like the simplicity of it, because like a lot of the time, like people are like, I mean, I'm being involved with a short film, And it's kind of been like all this kind of like, we're going to go to this point here, we're going to do from this part to here and this, that, and I think the simplicity of something like that, it can be, if you see something that's really kind of creative and stuff like that, it can be better than some of these kind of big sort of like 10-minute videos and stuff like that, like it's something that's kind of like powerful and creative in that aspect. I think that's quite cool to see, and it's nice that like, your bog standard sort of rider can kind of jump on that and be that creative. It doesn't have to be these kind of like huge YouTube celebrities and massive pro riders and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Which a lot of like where this kind of channel kind of evolved from is like trying to help the guys like me. Like when I first opened up my bike and got it out of the box, like I was like looking at it, I was like, oh yeah, that looks good. That kind of the old adage of like, kick it, it's like, yeah, that's sturdy, and pulled the brakes about the calipers in it and stuff like this, and didn't know what on earth was going on with it, and I was just so excited. And like now, like just going from there to here, like it's just kind of like really kind of, it's evolved. Like the bike's evolved, I've evolved, like my knowledge of things has evolved, and like learning to do different shoots like for that and stuff like that. It's something that if you get into it, you can evolve yourself and you can learn a lot as well. I found like I've been doing my channel now for about six months. Like it's been open for about a year now, but like it's 6 months being solid, and I've learned so much like from that. I mean, what would you say like you've kind of learned from your social media sort of presence and stuff like that?
I don't know really. It was all a bit random. It just happened because I wanted to do. It was a creative outlet for me more than anything else, and I never did it with any plan to do a weekly video or to set myself up as any particular kind of YouTuber. But just a couple of people said they liked what I did, so I just carried on doing it, and I just try to take the cameras out all the time. So, but what I have done in the last couple of weeks is start to think a bit more, because you think you put videos out there, you've got about 250, 300 subscribers, and you think, what am I doing these videos for? It's quite nice to look back, and it's like taking a nice photo on your ride. If you can come back and you can take a 5-minute video from your ride, then it's another memory. And I try to convince myself that it doesn't matter whether 100 people watch it or whether 5 people watch it. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to go and take 2 or 3 cameras with me, I'm going to come home and spend an hour or 2 editing it. I'm going to load it up onto YouTube. I want more than half a dozen people to watch it. So I've started to decide I need to start thinking about not taking it seriously is the wrong word, but just do it.
Put a bit more thought into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do it properly, and I'm going to try and play the YouTube, play the game's the wrong word, but just kind of obey by those rules that should allow you to become more successful in YouTube. And I mean, yesterday was interesting for me. I put a video up that I just thought about because I saw people talking about a particular subject. I went out, I made a quick video, I put it up onto to YouTube, and I've got in the last 12 hours about 10 new subscribers. So I think I hit a kind of trending topic, which was quite useful. So
yeah,
but you and I are doing the same thing. We're in a very small niche. If you wanted to go and create a channel that was going to get loads of views and become a million subscribers, you need to go and generate make a food channel or a DIY channel or a reviews channel on specific things. I think our market is quite small, and it's also quite saturated with people like us. So to differentiate is quite hard. But I think you're doing that. You've already you've created a sort of a brand for yourself. I'm trying to do that for me, but you've created a brand for yourself. You've obviously got some plans, with this podcast and stuff, and I think that's the key to it. And I don't think that you've got any expectations that you're suddenly going to make thousands and thousands of pounds of money out of it.
Absolutely
doing this.
Not.
But still, if you're going to do it, you've got to you got to kind of do it right, haven't you?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I always have this fantasy that, like, within this, like, especially when you're saying, like, we're in this very small sort of niche sort of market, and I think it's great to kind of like fantasize about the fact that it could be something bigger, but on a smaller sort of tiny scale as like what we are like. And I like to think like, because I often joke like, because I'm part of like a few groups on Facebook for like the bike that I own and stuff. And I think it's always funny just to kind of like have a bit joke with people and say like, yeah, I'm a big movie star now. I'm like a big YouTube sensation and stuff because I've got like a couple of hundred subscribers and stuff like that. In the grand reality of things, like you look at like Seth Bikes Hacks and he's got like 1 million and stuff like this. And
yeah,
I think it's funny. I never take things seriously at all, and I don't take. I mean, the way that I edit my videos now as well, it kind of shows like the mentality a little bit. Like I'm just a very bit random, and you know, like I like to enjoy it and stuff like that. But like you say though, it's quite funny because some people do take you seriously. Mm-hmm. Like I don't take the channel seriously. But if it grows into like 1 million subscribers one day, then you know, fair play. Like if I can make a living out of it, absolutely fair play. But like some people are very much like, what are you going to do next? Like I didn't like this or I didn't like that, and that sort of stuff. It's kind of strange because it's like you're not paying for this. Like this is me giving up my time to entertain you guys and for myself, kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I just think that's hilarious though. Like just seeing sort of people in that sort of like really weird bubble of like, I demand something from you, but I'm not going to give you anything in return, kind of thing, other than just negativity. It's quite funny. So
no, it is a weird little thing, and you know, and there's a few of us, you know, you, me, you know, obviously you've got Justin over at Casual Mountain Bike, and you know, this we're all kind of just trying to do something and just try to do something different. And I think the most important thing for people like us is, I don't know what value that you or I can give back to the mountain bike community. In all reality, you know, there are you know, half a dozen magazines out there that provide all this information. There are websites. There's so much information. So what can you give back? You can give back, I think, the average, normal, casual mountain biker's opinion on stuff, and I think that's relevant. You know, my bikes. You know, I very, very rarely upgrade my bikes. So you know, if I take my Marin for instance, I'm not going to say, right, here's my Marin, and I've put these wheels on, and I've done this, and I've upgraded the brake. I don't do that because I can't afford to do it.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm not going to be doing, you know, fancy bike checks because I'm not going to be upgrading and pimping my bike because I can't afford to do it. So for me, if I do a bike check, it's like, well, this is the bike that you buy. What's good and bad about it? And at the end of the day, most bikes these days, you can't go wrong. And if you're changing stuff, it's just because you want Hope or you prefer SRAM over Shimano or vice versa. That's really it. So I think the key for people like us is to be natural and just be who we are, and hopefully people just come to appreciate you for that. I watch YouTubers and sometimes I'm not in the slightest bit interested in what they're talking about, but you've just got used to watching that particular YouTuber doing stuff, and they might be reviewing a Ferrari that I'm never going to buy, but I'll watch that review because that person's got
you're invested in them
personality that I'm happy to watch. So that's what I think. That's what I hope I can do, at least, is just kind of be that familiar face at some point.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I mean, my one of my first videos was a bike check, and it was a joke, like, to start with, because like you see all these kind of bike checks. Like I saw a lot of them, and it was like this kind of really glorified like B-roll footage, this, that, the other. And I thought, well, how can I kind of emulate that but not being too serious? And like, because I bought a stock bike, you know, a sub £1,000, you know. And I just thought it would be funny just to kind of, and now it's got like 10,000 views on it.
Really? I haven't seen
10,000 views on a video which was meant to be kind of like a joke, but like I made it sound so serious as well. But like, if you don't know me, then you don't get like the dry sense of humor that I kind of like hold on to. And it just baffled me that, you know, but then people started looking at it and going, actually, what's that bike like? I'm actually thinking about buying it. And I've had loads of people message me and they've been like, oh, like, what's the bike like? And I'm being like, dude, it's great. Just ride the bike. I mean, but the thing is, though, that bike's going to be exactly the same as a Marin. It's going to be exactly the same as a Santa Cruz. You're going to get on that bike. You're going to ride that bike, and you're not going to know any different if you're just starting. Mm-hmm. Just pick a bike and ride it, because like you're not going to know any different.
You're right, absolutely. If you're in the market for spending, or you've got a budget to spend £1,000, £1,500 on a bike, you're obviously not the sort of person that's going to appreciate the workmanship that's going into something that's worth £4,500, £5,000. So you're absolutely right. You know, somebody who's going to buy, you'd ride a Caliber, don't you?
Yeah, Boston Evo, yeah.
So you know, if that's your budget and the market that you're in, there's no point in trying to compare it to the latest Santa Cruz Nomad, because if that's your budget, that's your experience level, you're not going to know what it's like to ride one of those. And at the end of the day, I think it's hard to go wrong with a bike these days. And Caliber are absolutely nailing it with their 29er, with the Boss Nut and the Beast Nut and whatever those now. They're just showing that okay, you may have to sacrifice on a few components. Yeah. But generally, the bike is going to feel the same and act the same and look the same as something worth £3,000-4,000 more.
Oh, 100%. Like, there's always going to be like, you know, bits of the bike which over time you're going to realize is limiting you a little bit. Like, for example, like when I'm climbing, I feel like I'm missing a gear. So like, I really want to see if I can kind of find something to upgrade it once this one's kind of like disintegrated a bit, you know. Like, I'm not going to just go in and go, right, okay, first things I changed was the pedals. I've done that all through riding bikes. That's the first thing. And I thought I want to customize it a little bit, so I've changed the handlebars, the grips out once the old ones had worn down a bit and stuff like that. And I got a dropper post, which I have to say is like the best thing I've ever bought for a bike, really. Like, hands down, like, it's great. But like, there's a lot of people who are like, they do go into it like very seriously. They're kind of like, you've got to get this, you've got to get that, you've got to get this. Like, no, just ride the bike. Like, a lot of the time I spent riding it and reviewing the bike itself was going from stock and then just doing little increments of like, well, I actually bought like a drop post. Like, now look at the bike. Like, it's so much. It feels a little bit different, like, because I've got more experience, more knowledge and things like this. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people need to get it like that into their head and like get out. Because a lot of people you see on these forums, they'll be like, nah, dude, you've got to do this. You must do this. If you don't do that, take the dork disc off. You've got to do that. I took my dork disc off and my gears went to shit. So don't take your dork disc off. I don't know what indexing is to this day. Like, I know there's something I need to screw, but no, that's my bike mechanic's job now. You know, it's little things like finding things out. I think I think that's kind of part of the magic of mountain biking as well, really. Yeah. Like, I'm quite technically like handed as well, so like I didn't struggle too hard. But like, bikes sometimes they just get the better of me, I think. Which is quite funny.
There are certain things that just become that you've got to leave to the specialists. But indexing gears is something that I mean, if you do your mountain bike leadership course, you need to be able to do that kind of stuff. You know, that's something that you need to be able to do a certain level of trail side fixes to get a bike moving. And if somebody's jumping gears, that can be a bit of a it can be incapacitating if gears are jumping, especially if they're jumping off the top of the cassette somewhere. So indexing gears is definitely something that you should learn.
Oh, definitely. So just kind of like briefly going on to like the last part, really. What if you're kind of like looking at somebody who is maybe his first time buyer or kind of just kind of wanting to get into mountain biking, what would be your kind of like advice / tip for people kind of just getting started, really?
Wow.
It's a big one.
It is. I mean, well, we just touched on it. I guess it comes down to your budget. You know, I think there's what have you got to spend, you know? I saw a big debate a couple of weeks ago where somebody was suggesting that you have to get a hardtail because a hardtail will teach you how to ride and you won't learn those bad habits that a full suspension bike will get you. And this person was actually trying to talk people out of buying a full suspension bike. And I think to myself, well, okay, I agree with the concept, and I love riding my hardtail, and riding a hardtail is really good for you. However, if you've got the budget to buy a full suspension bike, why make something harder for yourself when it could be a little bit easier with a full suspension?
You're there to enjoy
I think really it just comes down to budget. If you've got £2,000 or you want to spend it on a bike, go and read some reviews. Go and read. I'm not a huge fan, but go and read MBR, MBUK. Look at their group tests. Have a look at the whatever, the best bike categories, and pick one. Pick one that's pick the one that's the color that you like, because at the end of the day, it's probably going to be the one that you're going to be happier riding. You might see the one has got a better review than the other, but half of these reviews will end up falling down because they came with they came with the wrong tires on, and those are the things that you're going to change at some point anyway. So I think you pick your budget, you decide if you want a hardtail or a full suspension, and you go out and buy it. My annoyance with the market these days is that you've got trail bikes, enduro bikes, all mountain bikes.
There's so many to
short
choose from.
travel 29ers, long travel 29ers. There's far too much. My full suspension bike has only got 130. Well, I've boosted it 140 mil travel, and I ride that on black trails, red trails. I ride it everywhere. My hardtail has only got 130 mil travel.
Mine's
so
130.
Don't obsess over the geometry and over the statistics of the bikes. So pick a budget, go and spend the money. Obviously, talk to a few people, but
try other people's bikes as well, I guess.
Yeah.
No,
where are you going to ride it? If you're going to ride it around, Cannock Chase or something, Cannock Chase, you can probably get away with a relatively short travel bike, and you'll be fine on it. As you learn, then maybe you might want to ride steeper trails. Then maybe you want to go and get something with longer forks and a bigger, longer suspension that will allow you to have a little bit more confidence. But I went from I'll just summary. I went from 125 mil travel Giant to 150 mil travel Vitus Escarp, and my riding stepped up massively because the bike gave me a lot of confidence to do stuff that I was struggling with because I was pushing my limits beyond the bike. But then I got to the stage where I changed the Vitus Escarp and I went back from 150 mil to 130 mil. But I found it more playful. I found it a lot more fun. And the skills that I learned on the longer travel bike, I've now transferred to the shorter travel bike. So it's easy to obsess and get focused on all the stats, but just go out and buy a bike and you'll learn how to ride it.
Just focus on getting out on it, really. Yeah.
Just get out, yeah.
No, spot on, mate. Well, where in the World Wide Web do we find you to follow along and subscribe and stuff like that?
Well, it's easy, as I've said to people before. If you just search for Tim from Wales, all one word, you'll probably find me everywhere that I'm hosted. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. If you put in Tim from Wales, all one word, you'll find me on all of those platforms.
Right, spot on. Well, this has been the second podcast. I'm quite enjoying doing these, actually, to be honest with you. It's something different. So thank you to everyone who has came to listen to this as well. Make sure that you go and subscribe to Tim, follow him, check out what he's all about. You might even get a chance to see him if you're knocking around where he's riding and stuff like that. So thanks again for everyone. Thanks for listening in. I'm the Northern Rider, and I'll see you guys in the next one.